One of the great things about movies is that we all have our own opinions, but sometimes we have some crazy takes. We have our hot takes where we just step on the toes of the people all around us. Yesterday, I put out a post and I asked, what are my most controversial opinions? The ones that just make you want to pull your hair out, and you guys shared over 200 of my most insane takes. I sorted through them, put them into categories that I could put on this fancy wheel, and today I'm going to share my hottest takes live at Fan Expo Dallas. While I'm talking, be sure to join me down below in the comments section. Which of my takes did you think was the absolute most insane? Which was the dumpster fire take that I shared? And did we miss one? Do I have an even worse take that I've shared on my channel that we missed in this one? As the way this is going to work is that I'm going to have people in the room come up, spin the wheel, and I will share my flaming hot take in the category that they select. And then for a little bit, we'll actually react to a few of their hot takes. Who would like to go first? All right, Karis, spin that wheel. And we are on my Spider-Man hot take. All right, thank you, Camera Boy. All right. So when it comes to Spider-Man, there's one specific opinion about Spider-Man films that I always get the most angry people about this specific opinion. And it's that I think that Spider-Man Far From Home makes absolutely no sense. Like, superficially, is it entertaining? Sure. Is Tom Holland charming? Are there funny bits in it? Is it fun to go to Europe on, like, let's do a Euro trip with Spider-Man? Sure, that's fun. Are the Mysterio bits visually impressive? Sure. But the plot makes absolutely no sense. It's like they did not spend a second doing any sort of like, okay, how does this take place? So the plot of the movie is that Tony Stark left his weapons-grade glasses that control missiles in satellites to a dead high schooler. Because the movie, like Tony, in his life, the last 5 years, Peter Parker was dead. He'd been blipped out of existence. And so the plot of Far From Home is either Tony forgot to update his will with his military-grade glasses for 5 years, or during the battle with Thanos at the end of Endgame, he was like, I know we're really trying to, get that glove out of here and jump through the portal and get these stones returned and kill Thanos. But also, my will. There's more important things going on. So in the middle of the battle, Tony pauses to change his will to say, Peter's back. I'm not going to leave it to Pepper or Rhodey, Nick, like none of the people that are grown-ups. I'm going to leave it to the high schooler with no instructions that was dead until 5 minutes ago. Like, it's a plot line. They just go like, how did no one go, really? Like, really? There's not a better explanation for how we're gonna do this plot, how we're setting this up, but that he left his military-grade glasses to an impulsive child. There's other things in it that just make no sense. Like, there's a bit in it where a grown woman tells Peter Parker, who is underage, to take all of his clothes off. It's the sort of thing that it's like, it's a funny bit in the movie until you go, what are we doing? Like, this is like, what? No, you can't do this. Like, flip it. Nick Fury says that to Zendaya, and you immediately go, oh, right, this is bad. You can't do this. And so, yeah, it's fun, it's entertaining, but like, it is a movie that has so many problems with it on a story level that's like what's so irritating about the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies is that they'll like do really cool, entertaining things, but the basic setup is always so flimsy that it's like, really? To make all this great stuff you did, that's the best thing you came up with is like a kid wanted to go get into college and stuff like that? Yes, sir.
Who's your favorite actor for Spider-Man?
Favorite actor for Spider-Man? That's always such a tough one because we've gotten a bunch of really good interpretations. And so there's like I think Andrews is the most underdeveloped, so he's the easiest not to put him up on the list. Like my wife is in the back of me that like furious with me that I would say that. Love Andrew, he just didn't get the movies to develop his version of it. Toby he got probably the most classic Spider-Man arc, but he can also be pretty melodramatic in how he does things. And Tom kind of had this, like, we're trying to like subvert expectations, do something new and different with it. So then his take is kind of out there. So there's something about all three of them that I think that makes them the best. Like, I think just of like raw chops, Andrew's the best, but he didn't have the best material. If I have to go with like overall, just because almost by pure amount of screen time and that he wasn't in Spider-Man 3, I think I'm going to go Tom Holland. All righty. Yes, kind sir.
Also, another plot point about Far From Home is that Mysterio's like driving like anger is that Tony Stark named his machine Barf.
Yeah.
Like, that's literally why he did everything that he did. Like, I still can't get over that.
Yeah, like beyond the fact that it's like the 8th or 9th movie where a villain is his motivation is scorn for Tony Stark. They just kept doing that. Even after he was dead, they were still doing that. And the best they come up with is like, how dare you name my tech Barf? This is outrageous. And what is his plan? Like, I'm going to fake my way into being the leader of the Avengers so that when a threat comes, I'll die? Like, what is his goal in this movie? What is Mysterio trying to do? So, hey, if you say that you find it fun, I get it. But when like people are like, why don't you think that this is a well-made movie? Like, why don't get, please stop and think about the actual plot of the film. And our hot take is a hot take related to a director. All right. So the one that I came up with on this, because I was trying to think through what are my hot takes in terms of like overrated, underrated directors, things like that. And the one that just kind of immediately came to mind, a director that people just crap on all the time, but I think has a lot more to offer than people realize. Michael Bay is actually like a really interesting, engaging director. He's just worked with a lot of really bad scripts. He has his tendencies that are not great. In particular, where he made a decade of Transformers movies that were increasingly bad, though one of them was shot 5 miles down the road from where I live. But if you just go back and start at the beginning of his filmography with Bad Boys, like you have like this very dynamic action movie where he knows how to use the camera and make something that feels big and exciting. And then as you move into The Rock and Armageddon, they almost start discovering a new genre of like self-important, silly action movies. That like there's this like epic nature to them of, you know, in particular with Armageddon, that it's like we're like doing shots of Americana and we're like going across the nation as the president gives epic speeches, and then you have Bruce Willis crack a joke about getting hazard pay and never paying taxes again. And so it's like he crafts this movie that feels so big, so epic, while being about oil drillers being trained to be astronauts in a week and flying up into space and you know, like Steve Buscemi going crazy and stuff. Like, it's such a silly movie, but also it feels so huge. And think of how many movies these days that are about alien invasions, big CGI armies, that can't capture the scale and size that he's able to do with that. And then likewise, one of the things that makes like reason that people are like went bananas for the first Transformers movie is that you have this film that's about cars that turn into robots battling each other, and he infused that same energy that was in Armageddon about like global conspiracies, government, we're flying across the globe and there's speeches, while having like a car pee on someone's head. Like, it's like such a bizarro mix of like being able to like capture something huge, and then it's like, and then Megan Fox leans over a car. Like, whatever that is, that Michael Bay's very juvenile nature about him, but also being able to capture something that very few directors are able to capture. And then even beyond that, when you get into the third one, I always say Dark Side of the Moon or whatever. I always say the name of the Pink Floyd album instead of the title of the movie. But you watch the Battle of Chicago, and it puts to shame the VFX in like every movie that's put out now, where once again, the scope and the size where buildings are falling over, and you're like, did Michael Bay blow up a building in Chicago? Like, how does this look so good? And you're shooting a real thing combined with VFX at the highest level inside of it, and they just hold up so well. Does Michael Bay have 1 zillion faults? Yes. Does he not know how to necessarily craft a script to match the visuals and the scope? Sure. Would it be nice if he moved past middle school on the maturity of his humor? Sure. Like, we don't need dogs humping things in every movie. But man, does this guy actually know how to craft some awesome action and give scope and size to the? He did this movie, Ambulance, a couple years back, and it's like a basic like heist movie. But he like did the most insane drone shots where the whole movie is like drones flying next to this ambulance in a high-speed chase, in a movie that on paper is like, it's like a B-movie heist film that all of a sudden is really thrilling and exciting 100% because he knows how to move a camera. All right, anyone want to share? Yes.
On the Michael Bay thing, do you know the story about what happened during Bad Boys where he ran out of money?
Oh, go for it.
Okay, so the story is that on the day they shot it semi in order, so they were in the scene with the end with where the bad guy was supposed to get killed.
Yeah.
And the line producer said, "Okay, we're done for the day." And the guy's like, "Well, we haven't killed the bad guy yet. We ran out of money. We're done." And he says, "Well, what do I do? I have to shoot that." He says, "Well, you can push the crew. Meaning that you have to go into overtime." And he said, "Well, how much is that?" He said, "Like 10,000. And he says, "Well, what do I got to do?" He says, "Well, unless you're playing out of your pocket, we're done." And he literally wrote a check to the production and held it in front of the camera to prove it. And he ended up finishing the film. He said that the movie had made like $100 million and he still had not gotten his money back. So that's the story.
Actually, it's just have those people that are just like, well, I got to get it. And they like it's such an iconic, awesome moment. But he's also known for keeping most of his movies on budget. And that's one of the reasons he kept getting to make them is he like would make an insanely big movie on schedule and on budget. And it would look more expensive than it actually was. All right, if you want to spin it again, or we can go for DC. You like DC? Yeah. All right, we're game for DC. All right, our category is DC. There is one take about DC that when I asked my hot takes about DC or about movies came up, there was 1,000 people brought up the exact same one. I thought that The Flash was pretty great. Like, I went to go see it before everyone else. I watched it and I went, like, that's a multiverse movie with a much better setup than what No Way Home did. No Way Home has a lot of great things about it. I've said a lot of negatives about it, but like, so I don't mean to say, like, I really like No Way Home. But the setup of about a kid going to college, I just don't think is great. And then I watched The Flash and I go, that's a better setup. Hey, I grew up on Batman '89, seeing Michael Keaton in there. That is hitting all the right nostalgia buttons for me. It is kind of a DCU alternate take on the Flashpoint story, which is one of my favorite Flash stories. It's not a direct adaptation. It is very much loose adaptation. How does it fit into this continuity? What would the changes look like be in this world? So I can see why for some people they like would want a more direct adaptation. Fair enough. But for me, like, it hit all the right notes. The juvenile, silly humor, you know, as someone that has put many babies in microwaves, I thought the bit about putting a baby in a microwave was fantastic. I didn't know that's not how you're supposed to heat up your children. That's probably why Liam is the way that he is. But my wife has given me the don't say that because it's being recorded, I assume. But I watched it. It made me laugh. But the real reason behind it is a movie's job is to connect with you. I've said this many times before. My dad died when I was 20 years old. And so anytime you lose a parent too young, really, anytime you lose a parent, there's always a longing for more. You feel that sense of loss that either if you got to know them well, you don't get to spend more time with someone that means a great deal to you. And if you lose them too young, there's this sense of, I never got to know my dad as an adult. Like, I never really had my brain didn't, finish maturing until I was about 35. And so, like, I never got to have a real conversation with my dad. And so there's a hook inside the movie that is very compelling and absolutely works for me. So when people are like, yeah, but the VFX suck, like, you're not wrong. But like, what matters more to me, VFX or a movie with an emotional hook that really works for me? Well, an emotional hook is more important. Like, well, the third act got kind of weird and the villain's pretty weak. Sure, but I mean, it's a weird version of a conflict because it's a very literal manifestation of you are your own worst enemy. And so yeah, okay, that doesn't work. But if a movie works for you emotionally, if that hook, like what this is trying to, the journey of the emotion, if that works for you, that transcends everything else. A movie's job is to connect with you. And for very deep personal reasons, that movie connected with me. Now people in my comments like, oh, I'll say that in a video, like, I don't get it. How can you like that garbage? Like, really? I just told you, like, you couldn't hear what I just said. There's a pretty personal reason as to why I like it. But, beyond that, like seeing Michael Keaton again, if you're 43 like me, that's awesome. That was really cool. That to me is Tobey Maguire showing up in No Way Home, because that's the movie I grew up with. That's the movie I had on VHS that I watched on loop all throughout the 90s. And so, that's a movie that I just loved.
I agree with you on that, but I also think that it would have been very successful if it stayed to the source material, because of the fact that A, you would have had less Ezra Miller. And on top of that, people would have paid to see Momoa versus Godzilla.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like there's a lot of wasted opportunities where you do this adaptation where the Flashpoint story is like epic on this other level with Atlantis and Themyscira going to war. The one that was the disappointment to me is I love the concept of Thomas Wayne Batman, of a Batman that is driven not by dead parents, but by your son died, which is an even darker thing to experience. And yeah, female Joker. And then they cast Jeffrey Dean Morgan as Thomas Wayne. He's in it for Batman v Superman for 30 seconds. That is such a great pick to play Thomas Wayne Batman. And so it's tough because it's like, oh, we got to see more Michael Keaton at the cost of this other thing that I also would have loved to see. So it's always tough where you go like, oh man, you did a bunch of cool stuff in here, but I wish you had. I think the other problem with the movie is that it feels like the sequel to a movie we never got. And so people aren't like, well, there's a lot of reasons that people don't like. There's an Ezra Miller hurdle with this movie, but beyond that, it's also like diving in and doing Flashpoint before you've done The Flash, really. I get why it didn't work for a lot of people. I do, but also for me, it connected on a pretty deep level. And we have horror. Oh, this. That's his jam. All righty, perfect. This is another one where I have like a take that it is just a flaming hot take with this one for me. I've shared this one many times before, and I've said it since this movie came out. I, by a great margin, prefer Dr. Sleep to The Shining, which The Shining is widely regarded as the greatest horror movie of all time, one of the greatest horror movies of all time. It's both a great horror movie, it's a Stanley Kubrick movie. It's so iconic that even we're walking the floor and my son sees it, here's Johnny picture and he goes, hey, look, it's Johnny. Like even my 13-year-old hasn't seen the movie, knows the quotes from this movie that came out 45 years ago. Obviously, The Shining is legendary. It is like on the Mount Rushmore of horror movies, right there with Stanley Kubrick. I get it. I get it. I've never fully connected with it the way that other people have. Not that I hate it, not that I'm crapping on it. I've never connected with it the way other people do. And one of the things about the book, The Shining, Stephen King was tackling alcoholism. And that was a major element of the book, was Jack was an alcoholic, and it was Stephen King working through his own demons through the Jack character. And in the movie, that is largely it's a little bit sidelined in the movie to do all the Kubrick-isms. If you're into Kubrick-isms, then I get it. But as apparently this panel is a little bit of a therapy session for me, my dad drank himself to death. So now I guess that's probably not a good thing to laugh about. But once again, the major themes in my life. My dad died young, and I grew up with an alcoholic father. Even growing up, I didn't even fully realize the extent to which there was abuse in my household tied to my father's alcoholism, but there was. And so then Dr. Sleep comes out, and it's a movie that leans much more into childhood trauma, addiction, the cycles of addiction, the cycles of trauma, of the way that we repeat the mistakes of our parents. My dad drank himself to death when I was 20. I had never had a drink of alcohol when I was 20 and found myself as an alcoholic in my mid-30s. So a movie that's all about the way we repeat the mistakes of our parents, and that's a little bit like X-Men as a horror movie. It's like a movie that was much more on my wavelength. Also, Kubrick is a lot more metaphoric, symbolic, and surrealist than my brain is wired. I'm pretty concrete in my thinking. Mike Flanagan made a movie that was much more concrete, that is like a superhero horror movie that touches once again on themes that are so central to the pain of my life and the mistakes of my life. In which case, for me, Dr. Sleep just resonated on a much deeper level and just worked for me. And then I showed my wife the movie, because there's a scene where a kid is tortured to death, and she hasn't spoken to me since. So, okay, that never happened. As it turns, if you do, there's a lesson. If my wife's in the room and I'm speaking, I'm going to say a bunch of things that aren't true, and then she'll be in the back going, "No, that didn't happen." But yeah, I watched the movie. I was like, "Oh man, I'd love to watch this with my." Oh nope, can't do that. She would never make it through that scene. She would be so angry with me for so long if I let her watch this movie. Yes.
So I do have a hot take, but it's about a different movie.
Okay, go for it.
The movie Sinners.
Yes.
I don't believe it is a horror movie, though a lot of people do consider it a movie.
What's the argument?
So I believe it's more of a thriller than a horror.
All right, so his hot take is that Sinners is more of a thriller than a horror movie. And I get it. Like, horror is a tricky one because you can have dashes of horror in other genres. So is a movie a horror movie because it has a dash of horror in it? How much horror do you have to have in it to be a horror movie? Is Alien a horror movie? Is it a sci-fi movie? Is Terminator a horror movie? Is it a slasher, or is it just a sci-fi action movie? It's tough. So for me, I go, it's a movie about vampires killing people. I think there's a tendency, if anytime a horror movie gets too good, to give it to other genres. So, Silence of the Lambs, well, it's a serial killer thriller. It's Seven, well, it's a serial killer thriller. Like, yeah, but it's about a guy skinning girls, making a jacket out of them. That's pretty hardcore. I get it. I get where's the line? At what point does it stop being horror? That's the hard conversation, because it's a genre that blends with other things. And I get it, so. Oh, yeah, it's a bluegrass film. It's a musical, really. It's a celebration of. It's literally a montage of the history of music through the history of African culture, and that's like a major theme of the movie. And it's a singing vampire movie. It's exactly. See, now you're friends with my wife. You're best friends with. Oh, well, you already made it there. But so, it's. I agree. It's not a horror movie. It's a musical about the blues and kind of rock music too. Final statement. We got to move on.
So the main reason why I do think that is because usually horror movies are meant to scare people, but that movie didn't scare me a lot because it was more about historical.
Yeah. So the argument there is that it's not a horror movie because horror movies are meant to scare, and that's not really a scary movie. In which case, I can see that. That's never a good metric for me because I'm not really scared by movies. I'll be watching, Saw movie, and someone's like, "Ah!" and I'm falling asleep, and 30 minutes later, my wife's like, "What are you watching? How are you sleeping on the couch? There's a person being tortured to death." Yeah, I fell asleep. I was tired. Like, it was a nice soothing like noise in the background. It's kind of like some people like rain. I like people screaming. We're all a little different. All right, who wants to spin the wheel?
Land on horror again.
Let's give it one more spin then.
Horror? Okay.
You can have sci-fi or Star Wars.
Star Wars.
Star Wars it is? All right. Boop.
Star Wars.
We didn't cheat at all. All right. When it comes to my Star Wars hot take, this is one that came around to me about last summer when I was just thinking through some things and kind of the current state of Star Wars and which names do people throw out there a lot. I think that Dave Filoni is so overrated. Like, I feel like there is a category of people that think that Dave Filoni is better at Star Wars than classic era George Lucas, and I just don't see it. I don't know how much of it is just kind of a generational thing of like, if you grew up on the Clone Wars and your foundation of Star Wars is watching Clone Wars, that changes what you want from the franchise, what you love about the franchise, in which case that's just not what, I've seen every episode of Clone Wars, but I've seen every episode like once, or some of them twice. But, I was like, that's cool. Like, and it got better as it went along. And it made the prequels better and it fleshed out a lot of these characters. Cool. I get it. And then like the season 7 or whatever, the one that they did for Disney Plus, I was like, that actually really nicely tied into the prequels. There was a lot of really cool stuff in that I really enjoyed. But like, for me, there's an epicness to George Lucas Star Wars, even bad George Lucas Star Wars, that George Lucas, when he would sit down to write a Star Wars movie, would show up with a stack of history books and a stack of mythology. And he's like trying to like get these universal stories that are both mankind's history, because he studied like sociology, like he studied anthropology, like he studied what the choices people make in civilizations and what makes them tick and what makes them fail. And there's literally a documentary, the day that he sat down to start writing the prequels, he documented in 1994, and he sits down in his office in Skywalker Ranch with a stack of history books. And it's all about the fall of empires. And is Jar Jar Binks a mistake? And do I think that the dialogue about sand is maybe not the best? Perhaps there's a better way to communicate love and trauma than, I hate sand. It's so coarse and it's rough and it gets everywhere. But if you get into the heart of the prequels, and certainly the original ones, it's like classic hero's journey, good versus evil, but like there's a depth of there in a world that is just so big. And I just don't get that out of Filoni Star Wars, in particular as he started to do, like Ahsoka, and it's like there's things in there. It's like I liked that, but like my daughter, that as soon as I started bad-mouthing Filoni, she jetted out of the room. But back in the day, when that red-dressed girl in the back was still in mommy's tummy, and we're like, "Hey kids, what should we name our upcoming baby?" And Chloe literally said, Ahsoka Tano. Because that's how Chloe used to talk. Like that was a thing that was thrown on the table that apparently maybe we're going to have an Ahsoka baby. That'd be fun. And then they make a show, and by the end of episode 2, Chloe goes, this show made Ahsoka boring. Now, Chloe is a little bit of a blunt person and sometimes has very strong opinions, so take that how you will. But that was an actual perspective of like, all right, there's a show that might gonna get my daughter more into Star Wars. In episode 2, she's out, like checked out entirely. And, I thought maybe that was a bit much, and there was a couple things in there that I thought was really cool, but there's a lot of things that I think just lacked the weight. In particular, when you're bringing a Thrawn in and doing stuff that was like, there's really great material that it was almost what I wanted it to be, but always felt a little bit hollow and empty. And then some of the other things he did, I just think he's so overrated. A lot of his original characters aren't nearly as interesting as like if you're not super into Clone Wars and Rebels, they're just not as interesting. And he's like too fixated on his own characters. And so I am not a Dave Filoni guy at all.
What is your favorite Star Wars movie?
Favorite? Empire Strikes Back. I mean, the entire original trilogy are just, that's my childhood. And for different reasons, each of them is great. But I think overall, the most well-rounded is Empire Strikes Back. And in particular, I think that one has the best music. Of course, that's where you get Darth Vader's song, as my son and I were going to see Revenge of the Sith a month ago, and we're like trying to listen to Star Wars music on the way there. And someone on iTunes they called it Darth Vader's song, and it's the Imperial March, and it's like, how do you get the name of Darth Vader's song wrong? But Imperial March, of course. But then the Yoda and the Force, it's I guess supposed to be magical. It's literally the Force, but like John Williams, he got it. But then the music in the asteroid chase, and when it's like the sequence would already be awesome, and it's so much better. It's like no 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 no. It's like every note perfectly crescendos, them flying past something and a TIE fighter exploding, crashing into it, just like a trilogy that was always on a creative high, at the height of its high, and George Lucas bringing in other people who could make up for his weaknesses of him not really liking directing actors and not being all that as strong with like dialogue, and you bring in Lawrence Kasdan, who's gone on to become, one of the icons the last 45 years, and so you kind of get the best of all the different pieces. We have time for, it looks like probably just one more spin. If someone wants to come up, you want to potentially have our last spin on here? We have my Pixar hot take. All right, since we don't have to worry about running out of time here, I can fly through 3 of these ones. You'll get like the speed round of hot takes on Pixar. So 3 that came up, and I was like, oh yeah, those are hot takes. Yeah, I got a lot of people a little spicy over that one. First one is that I was a big defender and a big fan of Toy Story 4. And this is more of kind of like a polarizing film, because there's a lot of people like me that was like, that was a great continuation. I went in cynical. I was like, are you guys crazy? Like, you ended it so well. This is dangerous. But for me, I felt like in the first 10 minutes, it was able to win me over. Young lad in the front, if you could stop bouncing the ball, my ADHD is causing me to just stare at you rather than talk about Woody and his midlife crisis. But so what, to me, the exact thing that I thought was so brilliant about the film is what a lot of people hated about it. In my mind, the Toy Story 3 closed out the Andy plotline, where Woody's the leader of this group. But one of the things about life is as you go through life, your dynamics and the people around you and your position changes. And so when Andy is your kid, Woody is the leader. But now that we're over here with a girl, that dynamic is totally different. And all of a sudden, his position in the world, in life changed. And so the movie's about him kind of realizing that his role in this world has changed, thus leading to a final choice where he goes off and does his own thing and leaves his friends. A lot of people took that as like, you've betrayed my childhood. Woody would never turn on his friends. He would never do this. And it was like, I feel like that's a misunderstanding of life, that as you go through life, things change. And it's not because you had a falling out with these people. It's not that you're mad at them. It's that the circumstances, your surrounding is different. And what's best for them, what's best for you, it changes. And that's okay. That it's okay that like what was a diehard commitment up until that point, that you would never make a certain choice, but now everything's different. And that commitment doesn't make sense in this position in life anymore. And to me, that was like, that's a really insightful look at life and how friendships and relationships change. For some people, that was a betrayal of their childhood. How dare you? Woody would never. Like, all right, I see things differently. I also thought the villain was a really interesting way to have someone that's very villainous, and then by the end of it, you see her as like a very complex character that's not Lotso from the third movie that is just like a crazy person, and not the prospector who's just driven mad by being the reject and put in a box. She's like a very different version of the villain. A couple other ones real quick. Man, since I was not a fan of Turning Red, and you know, some of it's just kind of like puberty metaphors. Puberty's weird and awkward, and I don't really like movies about puberty. There's a couple exceptions to that, but like, I didn't enjoy going through it. And now I've got kids now that they're hitting this phase of life. Like, puberty's weird. And so puberty metaphors, in particular one that's like leaning into it being a period metaphor, like that, like it's just not something I'm rushing to like watch. But beyond that, the movie presents the mother quite literally as an evil monster. Like, her mom is an evil kaiju. And as a parent, that wasn't, and your mom is the domineering person that pushes you away, and your friends are the ones that care and listen to you. And of course, the mom has a character arc, and she learns and she grows and she changes, but I get that. As a parent, like there's a concerning message in that of like, what I don't want is a film that sends the message like, yeah, I mean, a lot of times we're gonna be wrong, we're set in our ways with a previous generation, but your friends get you. Sometimes there's truth to that, and you need good friends, but also like, I don't like the idea that anything that would communicate, you can trust other people more than me. Like, as a parent, I don't like that. So there's a bunch of things about it that just I didn't connect with, and it's like, it's also really specific. It's like about trying to go to a 2001 boy band concert. It's also like really culturally, in Canada, in Toronto, it's like, that's really specific. And so I wasn't into it. And I don't even remember how much I would agree with this now, but I said that I thought Screenslaver was a better villain than Syndrome. I don't know, people went a little bit nuts on that one. I've just never been, the villain, Syndrome's motivation is a pretty classic trope. It's the same thing as Riddler in Batman Forever. It's the same as Killian in Iron Man 3. Like, it's kind of a classic trope of the person that is scorned by the hero, comes back later to be a villain over a petty. I just never find it particularly compelling. I find other villain motivations much more interesting. So I don't know if I'd stand by the Screenslaver bit. I'm just not super into Syndrome. He has a great line when everybody's special, nobody is. Like, that's a great line. There's things that I like, but I've just never been crazy about like that for any of those movies. It's not like, well, I loved it when it was Riddler. I loved it when it was Killian. Like, all of them, like the goofy nerd. Oh, it's Electro in Amazing Spider-Man 2. Just none of those hit particularly hard for me. All right, thank you guys for coming out. Those of you that are on the internet watching right now, let me know which of my takes was the most flaming, hot, insane one I have. Which other of my hot takes do you think is even more insane than the ones that we shared here? And if you want me to do more videos with the wheel, we can bring the wheel back and have more fun with it. And for those of you in the room, thank you so much for coming out. It means the world to me that you care about anything that I have to say, that you'd want to join in on a panel, hear my insane, in particularly my flaming hot takes. It means the world to me. And it's just always fun to be at one of these Comic Cons. Thanks for coming out.